like, let me guess, Granny's alive again? And I was like, no, she really is. And she was like, wait, I was just joking. And I was like, oh, no, no, she's like a zombie. And then my mom calls again, and my mom goes, she's dead again. She's dead again. And she was like, it's okay. It's okay. She's dead again. And I laughed so hard, and my mom laughed, and my sister, and it was the most healing, wonderful. And I was like, I wish Granny was alive for this because she would have laughed her ass off.
Jenny Lawson, welcome to Quick Before You Forget.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here. I've had an extremely crazy morning, and this, I have been looking forward to this. So, yeah, let's do this.
I've been looking forward to it. My friends and my family have not heard me shut up about it because I'm just so stinking excited because you guys, Jenny, who is also affectionately known as the Bloggess, like Mother Teresa, only better, is also a number one New York Times bestselling author and multiple New York Times bestselling author, I might add. She is also a columnist, an award-winning humorist, and someone who has turned some of life's hardest mental health battles into connection, creativity, and chances for laughter. In her newest book, How to Be Okay When Nothing Is Okay, she shares raw, real, and often hilarious tools that have helped her keep going, even when her brain is working against her, especially then. If you've ever wondered how to keep creating, living, and finding light when things feel heavy, this is going to be a conversation for you. So I am so pumped. I'm so ready. And I think that Jenny, storytelling, as you are you were like blogging before anybody was blogging, and you know all about this art of storytelling, but I do believe that storytelling is our superpower. So I want us to walk through like past, present, and future kind of together, starting with a story about a person that made an impact on you as a younger human, that has continued to have an impact later in life.
I would say the person that has had the biggest impact is probably my mom. Um, she would say that she's incredibly boring, and that she, every time I call, she's like, well, you got to talk because I got nothing. Um, but she is the kindest person that I've ever met. And throughout my life, whenever I want to be a better person, I just think like, what would my mom do? What would my mom tell me to do here? What would she react when I don't want to do something, but I know it's something I need to be doing. I think my mom would be proud of me later. This is something that later I can be like, oh, look, I did this thing, and she'll go, oh, I'm so proud of you. But at the same time, she's also accepting and loving, and then I can say, oh, I got offered, this great thing that anybody else would just die for, but I can't do it because it's just too much for me. She's like, yeah, you don't need that. You're cool. Don't worry about it. And so I try to bring that forward, that same sort of energy with my kid and with my own life. I don't always succeed, but I try.
Well, trying matters, and your mom, I appreciate that she supported you in ways that you needed to be supported. Particularly, I don't know, and if you've talked about this, I apologize publicly, but like, did she encourage you to start writing? Can you walk us through like how you got started in writing? Because I know you've been writing since you were a very little girl.
Yeah. No, she encouraged me to always read. And I think that there is a natural progression for a lot of people that if you read a lot, then you want to tell your own stories. And so when I think back to my childhood, that's one of the things that I remember the most is, walking to the bookmobile and her, sitting with this giant stack of books and being like, okay, you pick one, your sister picks one, you pick one, your sister picks one. And then when she wasn't reading to us, she was reading to herself. And so she was modeling that idea. And so I think because I saw what the written word could do, it made it easier for me to find my own words that way, especially because my anxiety was so extremely high at the time. And at the time, when, this 70s, 80s, no, if you said like, I have an anxiety disorder, they would be like, what? Because I wouldn't, and nobody in my family would have known what that meant. We'd all been, huh? Never heard that before. My mom was like, you just have a nervous tummy. And I was like, yeah, feels more than that, but maybe. And so I was able to, because my anxiety was so strong, I found that writing notes to people, like in class, was much easier than talking to people. And slowly I discovered like journaling and, diary writing, which I think can be so incredibly helpful. And I'm glad that because I was looking through recently, I found one of my diaries from seventh grade, and I'm looking through,
My
and I'm like,
gosh.
oh, it's so cringy. It's so, oh my God. But that's how you start. You have to start and do it wrong and try out different personalities, and then go back and be like, oh, I wasn't this like, punk rocker that I thought I was going to be this month, and then the next month I was like, well, maybe I'm this, and maybe I am. And I don't. It's interesting being able to see it all on paper.
What do you think she was trying to unpack? Like what or hold on to? Because so like Matthew McConaughey said this really cool thing once about how we don't write things down to remember. We write things down to forget. So it makes me wonder what seventh grade Jenny was trying to hold on to slash forget way back then. Like can you walk us through it?
Yeah, I think she was trying to forget how awkward she felt, how scared she felt that she would never fit in. Um, I think that there was a lot of, I think everybody when they're in, especially, elementary, middle school, high school, all the way through for me until college, I just felt like there's nobody like me. And not in a good way, not like I'm so special, I'm incredible, but like there's something, I'm very broken in a very different way. People know it, people can tell it just by looking at me. And especially because the internet didn't exist at that time. And so that tiny little world that you had felt like it was everything. And so when I got out into the world and I started writing and blogging, I all of a sudden I found all of these other people who were the same weird and the same awkward and the same strange sense of humor that I have. And you realize like, okay, so I would say there's probably 10% of the people in the world are like my people who go, oh my God, I totally get it. We are on the same level. We can laugh at the same things. We can laugh at a funeral and totally understand what we're talking about. Um, and those people add up, right? If you can find them, all of a sudden you're like, we're legion. There's so many of us. But it's so easy when you're in like a small little world to be like, oh, okay, well, I reached out to these nine people and I didn't fit in with any of them, so it must be something with me. When it's really not. It's just about finding your people.
I love that you did that by being yourself. Like you found your people by just showing up as yourself, starting for you only. Like you started to show up for you. You chose to show up for you. And there's such power in that. Like people need to understand that it's okay to show up. And it's okay to first of all not fit in, right?
Mhm.
But then like it's okay to show up as yourself. In fact, it's so good and so healthy and so normal to show up fully and authentically you. And when you do that, your pe crazy finds crazy, right? Like
Yep.
our people find us, and it's this
Yes.
beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful that you've done that because you've had this profound, you've created this safe space for people to feel like they can show up authentically as themselves, and they're not going to scare everybody away. And it reminds me of a story that I remember you shared. I don't know if it was in a book or on a podcast, but you shared a story of being at a conference or a book signing and hiding under a table. Do you remember
Yes.
this story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
that has
walk us
actually
through it.
happened. That has happened multiple times. Um, whenever I get really, really anxious, and I will say this hasn't happened in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. So I'm feeling a little proud of myself,
That's
but at the
good.
same time, I know at any moment it could happen. But yeah, when my anxiety was really high, I realized that this is the safest place, right? You get underneath the table, you get underneath the desk. When I was a kid, I used to hide inside my toy box. I'd take all the toys out. I had a wooden toy box. I'd close it, and there's something very safe about that. And so if at a blogging conference, I start to have a panic attack, I'm like, I'll see you guys later, and I'd go underneath the table. As a matter of fact, um, that happened once, and another person that was at the table was like, I'm gonna go with you. And so she came down there, and then another person was like, okay, well, it seems like you guys are having more fun. And so we were just all sitting underneath the table, and it was fantastic. And we just like had our own little tent. It was amazing. But yeah, I there was one time when I was doing a speaking thing, and this was maybe 10 years ago. Um, I started to have a panic attack, and they hadn't brought the people in yet. And there was like a little table stand beside where my seat was, where I was going to be doing the stuff. And it had a tablecloth, and I was like, I am just going to duck under here for a minute because I need like some private space, and I can't get because normally I'll just go to the bathroom, but I couldn't get to the bathroom because I would have to go through all the people, and so I was like, I'm just gonna. So I got underneath there, and I was just, I had my phone, and I was just doing some deep breathing, and it was all good. And then they opened the doors, and all these people came in, and I was like, oh shit, I'm stuck under here. Everybody's gonna see me climb out from underneath the I heard people like walking around going, where is she? I don't know. Have you seen her? I don't know. And I had to like climb out and not in like a graceful way.
Of
Like
course.
climb out, and the tablecloth is like sticking to me. So I'm pulling it was, but you know what? If you show up that way, I think it gives people some comfort because they're like, okay, all right, you know what? All bets are off. If she can hide underneath the table on the stage, then it's okay if I screw something up too.
You found some community under that table with some people that like were like, this is more fun. And there was a time too where some like you were under the table and then there was like somebody farther away that was also under a table. And I felt this level of like I felt seen, but I also felt like this connection that happens again when you just show up authentically you, like you made her feel less alone, which is like such an important thing and such a special thing that you do with your content. You bring life and light and levity to really hard things. And later, when I walk through some of your book titles, I made a note and an effort to make sure that we talk through the taglines of those book titles because they're so good, and people need to stand by for that because it's so good. But sometimes you're writing as a result of some of the honestly, like I believe you have ADHD, as do I. So and as I understand at a level that some might not, that there's some amount of your writing that feels like it might be unfinished. Like there's some things about it that don't feel quite done, but like in a good way. So like why to you, like why is it important to show the mess instead of always cleaning it up?
I think for two reasons. One, I don't have the ability to clean it up. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're so brave for, this and that." But I kind of don't feel like I am because I don't, it's not a choice that I actively made. It's just this is who I am.
Right.
Um, the I think it can be really helpful because it lets people realize that there are no real rules. When I wrote my first book, I did it in a very weird way. And, my first book came out, what, almost 15 years ago. And when it came out, confessional essays, that wasn't new, but the way that I was writing it with like these run-on sentences and all these footnotes and these like weird asides and talking to the reader and it was something that hadn't been done in that way. And I thought, well, this is going to really limit whether it'll, you know, find an audience, whether it'll sell. And instead, what I found is that that weirdness made it stand out in such a way that people really they related to it. And it sort of taught other people, oh, if there are no rules, what if I do this? What if I do? And then we all win because then you've got like all of these great books coming out or great pieces of art or great things. And every time somebody breaks the rules, you go, oh, well, then if they can do that, then maybe I can do. And I think it also helps people to see that there's beauty in the brokenness or in the strangeness, especially because so often I've had people who have said, I have never been able to read any books except for yours because my ADHD makes it really hard to concentrate. But for some reason, with your writing, I can read them. I suspect part of it is because I write in very little sort of ways, and so it's easier to duck in and duck out. And with me with ADHD, I'm very like, I'm gonna do something for 15 minutes, and then I'm like, what's over here? Squirrel. Uh, but also, I think it's really lovely that they can look at it and go, oh, this person is messed up in the same way that I am. And other people love that. And if they love that in her, maybe they'll love that in me as well.
Well, thank you because you've given me the creative, I guess, I don't even know, permission is that the right word? But like you've
Sure.
given me the creative permission to think outside the box in similar ways where I too tend to write sometimes in a way that feels very disjointed to me even, but it
Mhm.
all kind of ends up coming together in this way that I would much rather be real and I would much rather just like sometimes ramble on or side note or strike through or whatever. And it's just like as I'm working on my book, like am I'm letting myself have that freedom to like just flow and think and because I do think that there's going to be people that see themselves in these stories and if they're not perfectly tied up with a pretty little ribbon and there's a comma in the wrong place, they'll forgive me. So thank you for giving us writers and creators and artists the permission to own our mess, I guess, a little bit. And one of the stories that comes to mind as like an unfinished one, and I don't know if it ever did get finished. So this is a like real Jenny Lawson fan question then. Whatever happened to your sister getting chased by the pig? Did that story ever wrap?
You know what? It really didn't. I mean, she got chased by it, and then I want to say the third grade teacher came out and chased the pig back into the gate. And yeah, I think that was one of those that went off in a weird tangent. And what's really interesting is I kind of want to. Okay, so we live right next to a pig farm, and it was our house, and then you'd walk a little bit, and then there was the school, and then you'd walk a little bit, and then there was the pig farm, and they were show pigs, they were fancy pigs, but oh, they
Fancy.
smelled like pigs. There, it was a very, but the pigs ended up when I was older, they ended up getting into the house. And the pigs like lived inside the house and would like go upstairs and downstairs and everything. And then I heard that the people who lived there were like, forget it, we'll just buy it. just build a new house. And so they had their own house and they just let the pigs live in the other house. I'm not sure if that's true. It may have just been something that my sister told me, but I have loved this story so much, and I want to write a whole story of just these pigs living in this house. I don't know. I just think it's ridiculous, and I love it.
It's so good. And the thing that we're missing, the nugget that we're missing is that those mama pigs are so protective of their baby pigs. And it actually, the reason that this story like stood out and stands out to me to this day is I too once got chased by pigs at the state fair. And that mama
Uh-huh.
pig chased and I'll never forget, like I can picture the barn and the like my dad running, and it was this whole thing that I got chased by these pigs at the state fair because those mamas get protective of their babies.
Oh my gosh. And they're big and they'll hurt you. I mean, they've teeth.
Violent.
They've got, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
they're not
gosh.
messing around.
They're not messing around. But so
They
like
shouldn't call them mama bears. They should call them mama pigs
they
because,
honestly, truly like unrecognizably dangerous.
oh yeah.
And you wouldn't guess it.
You think they're like, oh, they're so lazy. They're fast when they want to be.
I know. Yeah.
It's terrifying. They're screaming at you. They sound like a woman screaming. It's, ugh, yeah.
I'm curious what Jenny, what you would tell 22-year-old you if you could.
I would say it's going to be okay. Um, it's interesting how often when I think of what I was going through in the past and at each stage of my life, especially because my anxiety was so strong, every time I would think, is this the end? Am I going to get through this? Am I going to survive this? And I always think in every situation, if I could go back in time, the one thing that I would say is it's going to be okay. Like you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be okay. You're going to get through this. And so when I even now start to panic in that same way, which I still constantly deal with this idea of, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is something terrible going to happen? I just remind myself that in every season of my life, it was okay. And I need to just relax a little bit and enjoy life more than my head wants me to, because my head wants me to be like on high alert, to pre-grieve everything, to see the worst thing in the horizon and live with that, because then it won't hurt as much whenever that terrible thing happens. And generally that terrible thing never happens. Another terrible thing might happen that I had no idea about, but even then I'm still like, but it's okay. I still got through it. I'm still trucking.
Yes, you are. And we try not to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself, right? That's says easy, does hard kind of thing for
Yes.
everybody, I think. But I, at some point along the line, you figured out, maybe it was just natural, but you tell me, at some point along the line, you figured out that humor and comedy and laughter helps with these heavy things. Can you talk us through how humor has changed your relationship with hard things?
So I have always been the kind of person to laugh at the darkest things. I think that there is something about finding the funny in the saddest, in the terrible, that is not only healing, but also it takes this incredible monster and makes it smaller. And I think the other thing is that it invites people in a way that, for example, I write about depression and anxiety and fertility loss and just a million different things that are hard. And if I can start with find something to make somebody laugh about even the hardest thing, then it makes it, first of all, it invites them in. Especially if it's something that they're like, I've never had depression, I've never had anxiety, I've never, had a miscarriage. And so instead, they can go, okay, well, that was entertaining. maybe I'll read a little bit further. It also, for a lot of times, people who are scared of a topic because it's too dark, if you can find a way to make them laugh, it kind of tells them that, like, you don't have to be scared about misstepping here. You don't have to be like, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to do the wrong thing? Um, and I think also it's once I can find the laughter in something is pretty much the first time that I can process it. So, for example, this, or let's see, I guess last year I found out that I have neuroendocrine cancer, and it's like it's very small and it's slow moving, and it's not anything that I'm super worried about. I just have to keep doing biopsies every 6 months forever to make sure it's not growing. But it wasn't, it was really, it was difficult when I, found out about it. I was really, it just knocked me for a loop. I was not expecting it. And I got on the phone with my sister and she started making the darkest cancer jokes. And they were so funny that I was like, I'm going to be okay. Because she wouldn't be able to joke with me if she thought I was going to die tomorrow. And the fact that we're still finding joy and we're still finding laughter, that means my life is not over. I don't need to be like, okay, everything changes now. Everything must be serious. I'm still the same person. I still have the same tools. I still have the same support. Um, the one of the examples that I give is when COVID first started, before there were the vaccinations, and it was really scary and nobody knew what was going on. My grandmother got COVID, and my this was during the time when all the hospitals were packed and you couldn't go and see them. And my grandmother had dementia, and she was in memory care, and so my mom was like, if she goes, she would want this. So but we were waiting, and they would call and kind of keep us up to date. And my mom called and she was like, they called and she died. And we were like, we were really sad, but also like, that's what she would have wanted. And my mom was like, hold on, I'm getting another call. And she got back on the phone. She was like, oh, hang on. They got the wrong person. Somebody else died. She's fine. And so and I had already told my sister and had texted her. And so when I called her, she was like, let me guess, Granny's alive again. And I was like, no, she really is. And she was like, wait, I was just joking. And I was like, oh, no, no, she's like a zombie. And then my mom calls again, and my mom goes, she's dead again. She's dead again. And she was like, it's okay. It's okay. She's dead again. And I laughed so hard, and my mom laughed, and my sister, and it was the most healing, wonderful. And I was like, I wish Granny was alive for this because she would have laughed her ass off. So good.
Talk about an emotional roller coaster. Holy cow, you guys.
Exactly, exactly. And I look at, so for example, my husband's family, they deal with things in a very different way. So had this happened with my husband's family, I think it would have been very like traumatic, and oh, it's even worse because, we don't know, and is she really? And this is so heartbreaking, and it is heartbreaking, but also the world is ridiculous and absurd, and you have to find joy in those crazy moments because they exist. They're all over the place. And so if you can find a way to find the laughter and the joy even in the hard parts, then it makes it easier to find the laughter and the joy in the easy parts.
Amen. That is a beautiful thing to say and so true. I aim to find joy and choose joy from the ground up is one of the things I do on the internet. I put my phone on the ground and pick up my phone and say, "What are you grateful for today?" But like joy from the ground up is about finding joy in those hard moments. And you've been very intentional about that, and like take it a step further, because not only do you intentionally create joy and pockets of joy in the challenge, but you also believe in like play. Like I think you have a hula hoop, like an adult hula
I
hoop. Is this
do.
true?
I
Um,
do. My friend Karen Walrond, she had one, and I was like, I always wanted a hula hoop, but I can't keep it up. And she was like, oh, get an adult hula hoop. I'm like, like it's just bigger because I'm fatter. No, it didn't work when I was a kid. And she said, no, there's a weight to it and it helps and you can keep it up. And so I bought one and I was like, oh my God, I'm hula hooping. And it's so much fun. It's so ridiculous. I feel so ridiculous. Just sitting, watching Doctor Who, hula hooping in the living room like some kind of 10-year-old. But if it brings you joy, do it. Run after anything that brings you joy. There's not enough joy in life, and it's hard living in the world today. So every time that you can, you have to grab that joy because that's the thing that's going to heal you so that you have the fuel to fight against the really hard things. Oh, Dottie agrees.
Dottie agrees. Dottie, Dottie, friends. Dottie had a little bit of a situation before we started taping, and we're paying very close attention to Dottie is her precious doggie on her side right now, and we're very grateful for Dottie, and I hope Dottie's okay. So, but Dottie agrees, and Dottie is joy from the ground up. You know what that was, Jenny? You know what that was? That
Hmm.
was my Wiley saying hi. I know that sounds crazy, but that was my Wiley saying hi. Oh boy.
Oh,
Woo! It was. It was. It was literally, you know it, we know it. It's beautiful and I'm grateful. Whew. Hello. Let's talk more about Doctor Who. You watched a lot of Doctor Who with Haley, your daughter, and you went through some things with just feeling like you were not doing enough as a mom. You would make mac and cheese, like, not even like Kraft mac and cheese. I think you said microwave mac and cheese, which is,
microwave mac and cheese.
one other step of mac and cheese, but and you would hang out and you'd watch Doctor Who. Can you talk
Yeah.
us through what that meant to you and Haley and how important it is to not be so dang hard on ourselves?
Yes. So, so when Haley was little, I still struggle with depression, but at the time, I didn't know how to explain that to them. And so what I would do is and typically when my depression shows up, it's different for everybody, right? So for me, it is complete exhaustion to the point where I really think usually the first couple of days I'm like, oh, I have the flu. So I'm really, really sick. And then if it doesn't pass in a couple of days, then I'm like, oh no, this is depression. This is like brain flu. So it's an absolute numbness of emotion and a very uncomfortable numbness. And so when I would have those periods when I could not do anything, couldn't cook, couldn't clean, couldn't talk, I would sit on the couch, lay down on the couch, and I would have Haley sit with me and we would binge watch Doctor Who. And when they got older, I guess they were maybe about 12 when I finally said, so I just wanted to, first of all, I want to apologize because there's so many times when, we would sit on the couch and that was depression. That's what it looks like for me. And I know during those periods I should have been doing, being in PTA and taking you to Girl Scouts and, making dinner and all of these things. And I just couldn't, but this is what it looked like. And I'm just really, I'm sorry, but I wanted you to know, like, I try my hardest. And they said, those were some of my favorite memories because you were 100% with me. You weren't off like, oh, I've got to cook. Oh, I've got to clean. Oh, you were just right there. And and it made me realize how often we judge ourselves on these standards of what we think we should be doing when in fact maybe we're supposed to be on that path or maybe that path is not that bad. Maybe there are some good things that come with that. I mean, I wouldn't ever choose to have depression, but looking at it from Haley's eyes, all of a sudden I was like, you know what? There are some silver linings to things, and there's probably a lot of things that I'm going through that are really hard, but that are making me take a slower pace, that are making me take a path that I wouldn't normally take, that are making me judge myself too hard, when in fact, I'm actually doing okay. And probably everybody is doing better than they think they are.
We all need to hear it, I think, more than we should, but I agree with you. I think everybody in general is working and trying their best and trying their hardest, and we all need to remind ourselves of that frequently. Haley is very special to you, and I know this, and I want to know what they have taught you. Like what have you learned and how have you become a better human because of Haley?
Oh my gosh. Every single day they teach me. And I think, I mean, that's the way it should be, right? Like it shouldn't be a one-sided thing, because if you think, oh, I've got all the answers, I know I'm your mom, and so I know all the answers, and you get older and you're like, oh, it turns out I screwed that up. And I think actually one of the things that has been really wonderful is they have taught me that every single person is unique. When they were, I want to say maybe around 12 or so, they they were like, so I think I'm gay. And I'm bisexual, and so I was like, that it doesn't affect me one way or the other. And so I was like, oh, this is my chance to be the cool mom and do what I would have wanted had I, said I was bisexual when I was, their age. And so I was like, oh, okay, okay. Can you pass the syrup? And because I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then later, and I was like, oh, I'm so look at me. I'm not making a big deal out of it. I'm like accepting. I'm doing all the things right. And then later, they were like, actually, that is not what I needed from you, because that was really hard for me. And you were just like, no big deal, big whoop. And what I really needed was for you to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you shared that with me. I'm so proud of you. But to me, I was like, oh no, this is the way that you're supposed to do it. And so one of the biggest things that it taught me is that every single person is different. And so if you have this idea of like, this is how I need to show up for someone, is not necessarily going to be how you need to show up for someone else. And I think so often we're like, oh, I should have done this with my kid, or I should have done this with my kid. But in the end, what it taught me is the ability to ask more and to be like, what is it you need from me? I still struggle with this. On a regular basis. They will, they're off on college and they'll call and they'll say, somebody said something awful to me, or this happened. And my instinct is I have to fix this, right? So I go into, well, have you tried this? Well, have you tried this? And I'm going through, and turns out that's not what they want. What they want is to have someone say, that sucks, and not give them a whole list of, and here are all the things I want you to do about it. And so what I have learned is to be able to ask when they say, I'm having a problem with this or that. My first question is, do you want me to listen to it, or do you want advice? And let them kind of run the conversation. And so if they say like, I just want you to listen, then I'm like, I think we should burn their house down. And it makes them laugh, because they're just like, wait, what did you say? I'm like, I'm just saying, I want to support you. I don't know what else to say. I think we should go burn their house down. And then they laugh, and we're like, okay. And then sometimes they're like, no, actually, I would like, what would you do in my situation? Um, but it's really helpful, because I think a lot of times, uh, kids or partners, or they know, if I give you feedback on here's what's going on in my life, this is maybe going to make it worse. This is maybe you're going to judge me, or you're going to give me a list of things to do, or you're going to judge how I handle it. And by instead saying, what do you need from me here? I want to be who you need from me, uh, can make such a difference. And then it also encourages them to give more, which is, I mean, it's hard when you, especially your kid, because they just want to be like, I'm fine, I'm
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that because I gathered that we are all unique, right? Like everybody's unique. And as a result of that, like, pairing very perfectly with that, of course, is that we all have our ways that we process things. And it's worth it to take that extra 30 seconds and say, what do you need from me right now? And that can change and shift the energy of all of the things. And then we go burn the house down, right? Like
Exactly.
then we go burn the house down.
Yes, yeah. I'm not saying it's an either or. It could
Right.
be and but. I don't
Right.
know.
Exactly. So, speaking of fun words, I'm going to run through those book titles as I've said I would, and I want everybody to get your pens out or go to Amazon and order all these books because you need all these books in my life in your life. I have them all. But they're all on loan right now. They were going to be like lined up behind me all pretty, but all of my friends, I have lots of friends who read and they're all on loan. So go get these books. They're called, the first one, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, a mostly true memoir. Furiously Happy, a funny book about horrible things. You Are Here, an owner's manual for dangerous minds. Broken in the best possible way. And How to Be Okay When Nothing Is Okay. Tips and tricks that kept me alive, happy, and creative in spite of myself. You guys, these titles and their taglines are everything. So, Jenny, quick before you forget, what's a story from your books that you love telling?
I think there are so many that I love for different reasons. But I think one of my favorites is the when I was in New York and I was on book tour, and they had me at a hotel that was like right on Times Square-ish area, and like you could look out and see all of these places that I've just only seen, on TV before. And I wanted to go explore and I couldn't, because my anxiety it was just too high. And so I was like all dressed up and could not, like, literally had my hand on the door at the hotel room and could not make myself walk out of the hotel room. And so I went back and I sat next to the window and I was crying and feeling really bad for myself and like a failure. And I looked down and there was this fountain, and the fountain looked like dandelions. And each one of the little dandelion sort of leaves had a little spray coming off of it. And there all of a sudden looked like it was on fire, but the fire was a rainbow, and it was the from catching the light, catching the sun. And I've never seen anything like it before or after. It was so incredibly beautiful. And I thought it is so strange because I'm looking down there thinking, oh, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, what is happening? And nobody noticed it. And I thought, are people just so used to beauty, or are they just so used to they're not looking? And then I realized that that's not it at all. It was because I was so high up in the hotel. I was the only person who was seeing it from that angle. And I would never have seen that had I left the hotel room, which is not to say, yay for agoraphobia. But that sometimes, even when your brain doesn't work, even sometimes when you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, there may still be magic and joy in that, and you can still find that.
There is magic and joy in that. That is the best story. I did go to Times Square because this book, Triumphs of Transformation, was displayed in Times Square. It's a best-selling book that I was honored to be a part of, and I went and I had that anxiety and I did the thing. And the way that my body felt alive that night was like nothing I've ever experienced because I had not been to Times Square, let alone wandering around by myself. I gave my mother, my poor mother, I love her. And she was so, so happy for me. And she was like, "What are you doing?" Because she has me on lock on her phone. She knows where I'm at all times. So she's like, "Why are I'm so sorry, Mom, that I gave you the worst anxiety that day. But I went and I did the thing for both of us, Jenny. And what's really cool is the rainbow. Like you saw a rainbow, and like again, friends, for those of you that don't know, Jenny and I did talk once before, and it was like in a former life. And I felt this just connection to her, much like I think most of your readers do. You just connect with us on such a deep level. I felt this very, very personal connection to you. And I'm so grateful that we connected so deeply so quickly because it makes sense to me now. Like there's just these like synchronicities that, lined up with, Wiley and the rainbow. I believe that, my chapter in this book is called Becoming the Storm, and there's an acronym in there, but the rainbows follow storms, right? So like there's a lot of rainbow theming in a lot of what I'm trying to build from the ground up over here. And here my friend Jenny just shares the most beautiful story about finding joy in a rainbow in Times Square, which is just so cosmic for me. So I just want to, and it's 11:11 right now where I'm at. So friends,
Me
this,
too.
oh my gosh.
Synchronicity. I totally believe in synchronicity.
Me
And
too.
little signs from the universe of like, all right, you're not alone. It's okay. It's gonna be all right.
From the universe and from like literally connections and friends that we make that we don't we miss some of this sometimes. Like you said, the people, why are they missing it? Because they didn't have your perspective. And then there's a lot there. There's a
Yes.
lot there. Um, I don't even know how to go back to what I was talking about because I am blown away by the synchronicities. Taxidermy seems like a good place to go from there, right?
Of
Let's go
course.
let's go there.
Natural progression.
Obviously. You love taxidermy. Your dad does or did taxidermy.
He still does. He owns a
He's
taxidermy shop in
he
Texas.
still does. And at the same time, your writing preserves these very real, raw human moments. So I feel a little bit like storytelling in some ways is kind of like taxidermy, keeping pieces of your life from being forgotten. What do you think?
I could absolutely see that. Yeah, 100%. The at least two of the my books have taxidermied animals on the cover, and I was like, there's no way they're gonna let me do that, and then they did. It was so awesome. It's funny. So my house is filled with taxidermy, but people call it ethical taxidermy because it's basically like I find like old pieces that are falling apart in like estate sales or it's roadkill or something like that, and I take them and then I dress them up. And so there's no animal here that's just a taxidermy animal. It's like, oh, here's like a little duckling, but also what if she was Marie Antoinette? And here's the just absolute ridiculousness, full mouse circus with all the little taxidermied mice. They're all doing different stuff. My wall over here is actually, let's see if I can move it so you can see.
Oh
It's
yeah. Are there any
filled with,
raccoons? I need to see a raccoon.
there's Rory, the raccoon.
Rory, there he is.
Yeah. And there's another,
My,
can't get high enough.
it's okay.
And then we've
Who's your
got
favorite?
Rory,
Rory.
definitely Rory.
Okay.
Although I do really like, he's on the other wall, so you can't see it, but I have this taxidermied boar head that I call James Garfield, and he is, oh my gosh, so ridiculous. I saw him at an estate sale. Just he's got this enormous smile. He's missing a tooth. He looks I'm sorry, James. He looks awful. But he looks so happy. And so when I saw him, I was like, I have to have this guy. And Victor was like, absolutely not. This is ridiculous. I think he was like $90, which was a lot of money back then. And I mean, it's still a lot of money now, but and I was like, I have to have him. And we went home without him, and I was so sad. And then the next day we went back and everything was half price. And Victor came out and he was holding James Garfield and like rolling his eyes the entire time. And he said, he was like, "Oh, I can't believe you got this. This is so," and I thought, okay, I'm never going to hear the end of how much we spent for this boar. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to make Christmas cards. And so I dressed him up in like a full Christmas garb, very kind of Scroogey. And then I handmade these little Christmas cards. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go online and I just need like 10 people to buy a Christmas card. And then I will have paid off James Garfield. And what happened was like 1,000 people were like, I want one, I want one. And so James Garfield was like pulling in cash. And I was like, this is found money. Let's do something fun. And so I took that money and I was like, okay, if you are struggling this year, it was during like Christmas, Hanukkah. I was like, if you're struggling this year and you need some help, just put a little link to whatever it is that you want on Amazon for your kids and I'll fill as many wishes as I can. And I was like, try to keep it around. I think it was like $40 each. And so I went and I, spent the night and I was going and filling wishes. And then I was like, I'm at the end of like I've spent more than I probably should, but I'm gonna I'll come back tomorrow and let me see if I can find some more money. And then, but when I came back, there were all these people who were like, "Well, I want to fill one, and I want to fill one," and so people had gone into the wish lists, and they were all filling them. All these strangers helping total strangers, and so we called it the James Garfield Miracle, and we have done it for I want to say 16 years in a row of just strangers helping strangers to get kids a toy, a stuffed animal or something, sweet to open up. And it's so funny because it's such a strange that it started with this boar actually, when in for some reason Canada did a big story on it. There was this Canadian, like primetime Canadian news, did a story on it, but they didn't say anything about James Garfield. They were just like, "Oh, they were like, let's talk about this." And so I went into a news studio and I had James Garfield was like propped up behind me. But they never said anything about James Garfield, and I didn't either. So it looked like I had just brought my emotional support wild boar, which is like, I mean, it's enormous, enormous.
Emotional support wild boar.
Yeah,
That's going to be a new thing.
yeah. But just the head,
Just the only the head.
yeah.
That's an amazing story. Strangers helping strangers is like the most wholesome thing on the internet. You are so like your light brings so much light that is so contagious into the world. And I'm gonna have to go back there because I don't want to forget to ask you more questions first. That's my ending time. I'm skipping ahead of myself. Um, I believe here a lot of we've talked through a lot of the mental health stuff and some of the mindset stuff around that. Not so much movement, but that's okay. We don't need to go there today. But music, I'm curious about. Do you have a song of survival that you go to that grounds you when times feel chaotic around you?
There is a song this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's called My Vagina is 8 Miles Wide. And it is anthemic. It is so fantastic. If I am, people will ask me like they're like, "Oh, do you have a song that you want us to play as you're walking out on stage?" And that's what I always request.
Beautiful.
Um, you absolutely need to go. Storm Large, I think, is who sings it. And it is just, I love it.
Thank you. And I will include it in the show notes for everybody, because that's very special. What is one message that if I gave you like a megaphone that the world kind of had to listen to? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to better say this question because I've been saying forced and I don't want to force anybody to listen to anybody. But if I strongly encouraged the world to pay attention to what Jenny Lawson has to say right now, speaking on a megaphone to the world, what would you say?
If I could make them believe it, I would say be kind because I think kindness is something that's sort of missing a lot right now. And not just kindness to each other, but kindness to ourselves. But because I believe that probably most of the people that I would say, be kind are probably already kind. And the other people would be like, fuck you, you can't tell me what to do. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So instead, I guess I would say depression lies, because it does so cunningly. And every single time I'm in a depression, every time I have to remind myself, my depression is telling me lies. And all of the things that it is saying, that I'm worthless, that the world would be better off without me, that none of those things are accurate, and that I just have to hold on long enough that I come out and can look back and go, oh, wait, that was my depression. That was an illness taking over my brain. And that's not true. It's not. Um, but when you're in there, it is impossible to not hear those lies. So if there is somebody out there and they are right now struggling, I would say you're not alone. Reach out for help. There are so many people who love you, and you put out ripples in the universe that you have no clue how much you affect other people in wonderful, incredible ways. You are doing so much better than you think. You just have to wait until you get out so that you can see that firsthand. And until then, just trust me. You are so worth it. You are worth asking for the help. You're worth the work that it takes. And it is work. It is hard, and it's time consuming, and it takes money. And it's very easy to say, oh, I really don't need that medication, or oh, I don't really need that therapist, or oh, I don't need to call a crisis helpline. Um, but you deserve all of that. You deserve every bit of help that you need, and everybody does. And I always try to tell people, like, if the things that you're saying in your brain, say those same things about somebody that you love. So instead, I would be like, okay, so those same things that I'm thinking, if my kid was thinking that, I would be like, oh my God, what? How could you possibly think that? That is what? And so if it's not true for them, it's probably not true for me either. And it's probably not true for any of you out there who are listening and are thinking those things.
What do you do on days when because asking for help is part of it, right? And understanding that help exists does not, asking for help does not equal failure, too. And it doesn't mean you're broken and all of that. You walk through that very beautifully. But also, what do you do when your brain just won't? When your brain won't cooperate? How do you work through that?
So lots of different things. I have a ton of tools that I have put together. And so I have treatment resistant depression, which means that I've gone through, I want to say it's more than 8 different types of treatment is when you get to be called treatment resistant. And that doesn't mean that treatment doesn't help. It does. It just means that you're probably not going to find a cure. And so I know going in, I'm going to continue to have these depressive periods for probably the rest of my life. But a couple of things. First, that when I'm not in a depression, I grab hold of life and I'm like, I deserve to have fun. I deserve to take care of myself. And so that's one of them. The other thing is finding those tools sort of in advance, which can be really hard because when you're depressed, you have the least amount of energy you will ever have. And that's when you have to be on your biggest guard, right? So one of the things that I do is I have in my phone, and I highly recommend this for everybody, find crisis helplines and look beforehand. Look when you're not even in danger, and go and find a really good one and put it in your phone under, if in danger, call this number. And the great thing about that is you may never use it. But if you do use it, you've already done the research, because sometimes there are some of those crisis lines that you'll call and they'll be like, sounds like you're too gay or what, you don't know, right? So if you do a little bit of research, you can be like, oh, okay. And there's different ones for, are you a person of color? Are you queer? Are you whatever it is? Are you a teen? Are you So you can find that I have found that really helpful. Sometimes I will say like I need help finding a doctor they can help in that way. Sometimes it's just you need somebody to sit with you on the phone during like the dangerous small hours to just kind of sit there. The other thing is realizing that when a treatment fails for you does not mean that you failed. And it's so easy. Like if you have cancer and you're like, oh, okay, well, the chemo didn't work, so now we're going to go to surgery. You didn't go like, well, you failed chemo, so I don't think you deserve surgery. We would never do that. So why do we do that with depression, where it's like, well, that medication stopped working or didn't work. So I guess I'm just gonna raw dog life for the no. Instead, you have to continually work. I have tried transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is very helpful, but it took a lot of time. I do still take antidepressants, which help. They just don't they're not enough to completely get over. I do every 6 weeks or so, I have ketamine injections by a doctor, which have been really helpful. Super scary. I gotta pre-warn you. Nobody told me that, like, I was like, what? The stuff that I didn't do in college. That's, yeah, you go out and dance at a rave and no, this is a very different setting, different everything. But it's been really helpful. And so going out and finding those things are um are important to you, they're important to your family, and they are worth they are expensive, they are time consuming, they are tiring and exhausting, and finding support can be really hard, but it is absolutely worth it.
And you should get Jenny Lawson's new book called How to Be Okay When Things Are Not Okay. Because there are tips in that book that are very practical and real and had the crew of the Good Morning America drooling. If you don't know what I'm talking
Literally.
about, you need to go see what was happening there. And I thought it was so funny because my friend Jenny was nervous about being on the show, and then she literally went on the show and she made the entire crew drool on air. It was great. It was so good. But the reason behind it is amazing. And it is that like scientifically, and you can feed into this however you want, but scientifically, we can trick ourselves into triggering dopamine by doing this, right? Like you and people who are listening are like, what just happened? I put my pen in my mouth and it made me smile, which is the weirdest, most ugly smile you've ever seen. But the point is, when your face smiles, you trigger dopamine and serotonin in your brain, whether you're like doing it because you want to or you're doing it because you have a pencil in your mouth. So talk us through that situation on the Today Show.
Yeah, so they wanted to talk about different tools that were available, and that's one of them.
There's a
And
lot of other good ones that don't involve pencils in your mouth, guys, and drooling.
exactly.
So
Exactly. And yeah, and I, explained it, and they had some pencils there, and I was like, so everybody, you put so everybody put the pencil in their mouth, and then I started to talk about, different things, but I still had the pencil in my mouth, and so I was like, we're all gonna drool. And I think we did a little bit. I also, for some reason, started talking about anxiety diarrhea, and then I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And I say that, and literally my hands are up right now. I'm constantly doing this, and then so then I sit on my hands, and then immediately pull them back out because my hands are like, no, you need to be up in your face. It was so ridiculous. I watched it once, and oh my God! And then I started talking about my foot falling off. But I didn't even say it the right way. I said my foot fall off, which I don't know. And so Haley called right after, and they were like, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. Oh my God, you did so good." But my foot fall off. And so now that is my constant. I need to make a t-shirt that just says my foot fall off.
literally, merch, people, our people, we will buy it. My foot is
Yeah, foot fall off.
merch ideas 101. It's a good time. It's always a party here. Okay. Is there anything specific that I didn't ask you that you would like to share?
No, you're great. You asked such good questions.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know, I'm new at this, and I am very grateful that so far that seems to be what people think is that I do ask good questions, and I appreciate that you say that. So before we wrap, I do have one more question, and it has to do with something that existed in a prior life that you don't do anymore. And I'm so excited and so proud of you that you don't have to do it anymore. In an interview or something, you used to write on your arm something like pretend you are good at this. And then you shared a story of how people would come up to you and cross out that word pretend. Because, Jenny, my friend, you are good at this. And I am proof because you have a way of leaving a light in the world behind you after you've left that space, whether it's in your writing, whether it's in a room, whether it's in, the on the internet, in a blog post. And it's personal for me. So I want to take a second and thank you for saying something that has lived rent free in my mind about 2 years ago. And I'm going to read it so that I don't get it wrong. It says, sometimes the path that you go down doesn't look right to other people, but it is the path that you're supposed to be going down. You find your own journey. And for the friends that have been with me on this journey, that is the Quick Before You Forget podcast so far, I've talked quite a bit about my yellow brick road. And that thought has been a light for me to keep me going, to keep me showing up, to keep me, doing this thing that I believe in with my whole heart. So, Jenny, thank you because you are good at this. And we, as a people that have found your content and loved it for all these years, are so grateful for you. So I have nothing more to say than thank you. I'm grateful for you. And we'll see you guys next time on Quick Before You Forget.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Bye. Thank you for being here with me today on Quick Before You Forget. Please like, share, and subscribe as that helps the show so much, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on Quick Before You Forget.